Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Jim Craig. I'm the technical and marketing guy with Oasis Hub, and over the next 20 minutes, I'll take you on a tour of the platform. If you've got any questions, please just type them in the Q&A box. You can access the Q&A box by moving your mouse to the bottom of the webinar display screen. This pops up a little panel of buttons, one of which is labeled Q&A. And you can just type your question in there and hit send, and there'll be time at the end for us to go through the questions, any questions you've got, and any feedback you want to give as well. So it'd be good to get your thoughts and views on how the platform is working for you. So I'm recording the webinar as well, and you'll receive a link to the recording as well a day or so after the webinar's finished. It takes a little bit of processing time and then converting to YouTube. And what I'll also do as well is any questions that you've sent to me, I'll compile a Q&A document. So as part of the package of materials received at the end of the webinar, there'll be a list of all the questions that were asked and all the answers that were given as well. So just a little bit of a background. The Oasis Hub came into being in 2015, and it was born out of a stated need from the insurance sector and the academic sector. And the goal was to enable the insurance sector to benefit from the huge amount of state-of-the-art climate and catastrophe modeling research that's being carried out in academia and in other research centres as well. And then since then, our friends in the insurance sector are being joined by a wider audience, and that ranges from people looking at city resilience, the disaster risk response, the DRR community, civil engineers, finance, just to name a few. We officially launched in June 2017 with the support of EIT Climate Kick. So the Hub's role in all this really is to build a community and to act as a kind of a marketplace for free and commercial data, tools and services. So anyone from an individual to a large organization can offer products and services on the Hub. And if you're interested in doing this, I'll be hosting a webinar next Wednesday, and I'll walk you through the process of getting your data on the Hub. I talk to lots of people who are postgrads, PhDs, and they've got hard drives full of data that they think it would be really good to kind of get this out in the wider world and get people taking extra advantage of it. So our design goal really was to address the three biggest issues that we found with access to environmental and natural hazard data, and they are making it easy to find. So we use a mixture of methods, which I'll show you in a few minutes, to really find the right results quickly and easily. And what we also wanted to do is make it easy to understand. Typically, we do this through a visualization of a sample of the data. So you can decide quickly if the data is relevant to your current work without having to download it, import it, or integrate it in some way, and then find it's not quite right. And then finally, we want to make it easy for you to consume. And this comes in two forms, really. There's the licensing perspective, there's the legal license, and also from a data format perspective as well. So being able to hoover the data directly into typically a GIS tool that you're using. So we're looking at trying to streamline that as much as we can. And one of the other things that's very important to us is education. And what we're really about is letting people know what data is available and what tools and services are available, and how it can be used to help them solve problems related to natural hazards and or climate change. So last week you may have joined us for a webinar with JBA. They're one of our partners, and prior to that we ran a webinar with HydroGIS on the benefits of using the British Rainfall Digital Archive, which they're both different but fascinating webinars. So, and the recordings of those are available on the website as well. And we'll be running even more webinars next year as well. So looking at the Hub now, it's organized in a series of layers. And what I'll do is explain what each of the layers do, and then dive into each of them individually and go into a little bit more detail, just to kind of explain what's going on behind the scenes. So at the very top of the screen, we've got this rotating banner. And the idea behind that really is that's kind of the news headline. And it shows typically when we've posted new data, new data sets, new tools, and it advertises events like this webinar or recordings of previous webinars. So an example of that here's last week's webinar that we did with JBA. Just click on read more here. And it takes you actually into the blog that sits alongside the website or sits as part of the website. So here is our webinar that we did with JBA. It's uploaded into YouTube, so you can access it from any time. You really don't want two of me, so I'll just pause that one for now. So the banner really acts as kind of a headline, and as well as being able to access things like webinar recordings, we use it as a way to promote campaigns that are focused on particular themes. So earlier this year, we worked with another one of our partners, Fathom Global, to provide data for what will be in excess of 50 cities from 6 regions around the world. So if I just take you into this particular campaign here. So this is focused around flooding in cities and flood data for cities. And we start at the high level. So we take a global view here for this particular campaign. So what is the problem of flooding at a global level? And then we drop down into a bunch of different regions. So if I drop into Asia, what we do then is kind of set the scene for the Asia context. And then finally, you can go in and choose one of the cities and read a little bit about the challenges that particular city has been facing. And then you've got the ability to go off and buy the data sets that are relevant to that particular city. Data is really important. It's really where it all began for the Hub. And one of our chairman, Dickie Whitaker, he describes the Hub as being like Amazon for data. And in a similar way that Amazon started off just selling books, we've started off with data, but now you can buy pretty much anything on Amazon. And the similar thing is happening with the Hub. So we're offering tools and services as well. So value-added things around the data. And because we started with data, what we wanted to do is kind of really have that as the lead in to the website. So below the banner here, we've got this free text search box. So if you're looking for something in particular, so one of my favorites is to, as you can see, is to search for Bangladesh flood. So you just type in, typically, the region, the city or the region that you're interested in, and the particular catastrophe type that you're interested in, and press enter. And then what the site will do is return all the index will return anything that has a match in there. When we looked at I'll just take you back a level here. When we looked at how people use data, and it sort of broke down into two kind of use cases, and we've kind of catered for them here through this strip of icons. So I'll come to the map and the IDF cat risk catalog in a moment. But what we've done is kind of looked at the two kind of use cases, and typically people would say, like, well, I'm working in Norway and I want to know everything you've got for Norway, so I need data for that country. So they'd go through it from a very sort of geographical point of view. And then we've got people who are interested in a particular domain, such as volcanoes, for example, and they'd say, well, you know, I want to see what data you've got for volcanoes. So dealing with the first use case, what I'll do here is show you an example of being able to find things through the map. So you simply click the map icon, and what that will do is take you to the map, and you see on the right hand side of the screen, this is actually a list excuse me, of all the data that we have in the system at the moment. We have just short of 1,000 data sets in there, and a backlog of data that we're working really hard to get online as quickly as possible. So if the focus of the map is not the region that you want at the moment, you can just simply click it and drag it. And then if you wanted to select a particular area of the map, you click it to select, and then second click to confirm that. And then what will happen is on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see all the records that relate to, in this case, North America. And you can see we've got a mix of things here. So we've got flood maps, we've got sea level rise, seismic and wildfire data sets, just to kind of pick a few examples out here. So what that does is tell you or deliver you results based on the particular region that you've selected. So it doesn't discriminate between what the data set is looking at. It just tells you everything. It will present you everything for that particular reason, for that particular region. So it's kind of a neat way of being able to find things from a geographic point of view. If I just go back to the home page now, the use case I mentioned was for people who search by a particular discipline. In our world, that's by a particular type of natural hazard. So beneath the finder bar here, we've got a list, a strip of icons, and it's by no means an exhaustive list. It is extensible, and what we wanted to do was kind of strike a balance around sufficiency, so not having you confronted by a wall of icons, but being able to present you with a kind of a logical and comprehensive enough set, kind of less is more, that allowed us to organize the underlying data sets appropriately. So if I just pick one example here, so let's have a look at tsunamis. If I just click the particular hazard type, what that does is tell me that we've got 8 data sets in the hub that are related to tsunamis. And what the system does over on the left-hand side of the screen, it tells you what are the organizations that have provided those data sets. You can actually create things called groups. So the idea behind a group is that if you've personally provided a range of data sets to the hub, you can create a group. I could create Jim Craig's group, and all the data sets that I put on there, I could add into that group. So it would make it easy for me to share with other people in the community. I could just send you a link to Jim Craig's group, and then you've got access to all the data sets that I've uploaded. We make extensive use of tagging when we load a data set. Again, this is to help people find things quickly and easily. So we use tags, and the system automatically tags the formats as well. So this tells you what the different data set types and the resources that are attached to data sets are available. So what I'm going to do is just show you the view here. So when I've clicked tsunami, it's found 8 data sets that match that particular hazard category type. And if you scroll down the list, you can see that each data set has a title, and you can see part of the description appear in the results field here. So I'm going to have a look at this data set at the very bottom here, the global tsunami run-up. And we'll just click on that, and then that takes you into the data set itself. So each data set can contain multiple resources, and as you can see, we've got a range of resources here. We've got CSV files, we've got images, we've got a shape file, and we've got links to a preview. So we sitting behind the hub is a GeoNode server, so that helps us to deliver some of the data in a GIS format really quickly and really easily. So beneath the resources, we've got all the countries that are related to that particular data set, and then some additional information here as well, including things like when it was last updated and that sort of thing. Okay. So I can do some basic manipulation with some of the resources that are attached to the data set. So if I just simply click on this tsunami run up here, the CSV file. What that does is load a data explorer for me. And the data explorer is just a very simple kind of spreadsheet view of what's going on in this particular resource. So I can do some basic sorting, for example. I can, again, do some basic graphing. So I can choose the graph type that I want. In this case, I'll go for a column. And what I'll do for the first axis, I'll just pick something really quickly off here. Let's go for water height by month, for example. And so you can see you've got some, it is basic manipulation capabilities, but it does allow you to kind of interact with and view the data and kind of get a sense for, is this something that I'd like to use in my kind of day-to-day work? So that's the Data Explorer. Okay, if I just go back a level now, one of the other areas that my colleague Jose, who we affectionately, Jose Fernandez, you may have seen his name around, we affectionately refer to Jose as the data guru. And Jose does a huge amount of due diligence on data prior to it being loaded and made live. One of the things that we wanted to make sure is the data that we are putting on the hub is quality data. So Jose does a huge amount of work, including reading the scientific and technical papers, which he links to as part of the resources, and make sure that that more data is accessible. Jose also creates a preview of a subset of the data. So here's a data sample here. So this is a live sample of the data, and it's not so this is actually data from the underlying data set, and you can kind of click on it and kind of view it and manipulate it and work around things. So like I say, there's a huge amount of work that goes on there by Jose to make this this data accessible, and beneath that we've got additional information. So the digital object identifier, when it was last updated, what format it's in, and that sort of thing. Okay, so as a marketplace, we also wanted to stimulate interactions between our growing community and and the data providers and the data consumers. So we do that in a couple of ways. The first way is by being able to comment on and rate a data set. So in the same way that if you were buying something from Amazon or from an app store, you've got the ability to review it and give it a star rating. We do the same thing here. In order to do that, though, I need to be logged in. So I'm just going to log in here. And I'll go back to that tsunami data set. And what has happened now I've logged in is that when I go into the data set, what I'm able to do is to provide some feedback as to how useful that data is for me. So I've got this leave review, give it a subject, give it a title. What we've done is we working with the academic community and the insurance sectors. What are the kind of the top 3, top 5 aspects that you would rate a data set on? So that's where we've got to with the geospatial accuracy, the completeness. So does it have peer-reviewed documentation? Does it have a how-to guide with it, or some sort of additional technical documentation, and the temporal length as well? So they're the 3 areas that we allow you to kind of rank or rate data on. The other area of interactivity is the dataset forum. So each dataset has its own unique forum, and we wanted to do that because we wanted to kind of maintain the context of the conversations and the debate that might go on. So for example, if you're interested in tsunamis, you probably aren't that interested in volcanoes, for example. You may be, but not as, what we wanted to do was kind of keep the conversation separate and allow people to engage in and have a debate about a particular data set. That's why each data set has its own unique forum. So that's just a quick run through of the data sets and the resources. The final icon on the bar is the cat risk catalog, and this is an initiative from the Insurance Development Forum, and this differs from the hub because the hub is about data, and the cat risk catalog is populated with entries from model providers. So the idea here is that this complements the hub by providing a signposting to models that can be used typically by the insurance sector. That's where the driving forces come from. But if you're doing any kind of loss and damage assessments, then this data is for you. Just simply click on the IDF icon and then view tools. And then I'll just pick something off here. Let's just pick this one at the very top here. So everything is organized in this series of tabs. So you've got some key information, you've got some product details, some additional technical details, which as you would imagine. So in here, product details just tell me what mathematical models we used. And the technical details, it is, as you would expect, is quite insurance specific. So it's got spatial resolutions for hazard and exposure, what modifiers we used, and that sort of thing. System requirements: can it run in the cloud? Does it run on a local machine? What are the requirements for it? And then the ability to contact the model provider. Going back to the hub now, a couple of places to stop off on the way down. We have featured data sets. So the idea behind this is that, if there's something particularly interesting or appealing, then that appears in this featured data set view here. So I've got the Future Danube droughts event segment from our friends at Potsdam. Now, instead of having a price here, there is a get price button. The reason for that is not all data sets, as I'm sure you're aware, that there are so many different permutations to the data. It's not easy to just put a price tag on it. It depends how much work has to go on at the back end to kind of mine down and get the particular data that you require. So in that case, if you click this get price button, it's a very simple form. You just fill it in, it inherits your details from your login, and you can hit send, and then that will send a message to us. We'll kind of review a request. If we need to talk to the data provider, then we will do. Sometimes we've actually got on a conference call with the data provider as well, and it allows you to kind of get, make sure that we're delivering exactly the data that that you want to get. For more straightforward data, so in the other example I've got in the featured data set list down here is we've got some data for the Indian city of Kochi, and that's straightforward. It has a price associated with it. I just simply click the add to cart, accept the license agreement that pops up. You've got a link to the license agreement to read it, and then you can go through a checkout process, put in some credit card or PayPal details, and then download the data set from there. Now, there are a couple of things to point out with downloads. You noticed in order for me to provide feedback on a data set, I needed to be logged in. The same with buying or downloading a data set. I need to have an account on the hub and be logged in to be able to do that. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. The other kind of bits of the hub are the blog. So we put our most recent blog posts up here. And if you, if you've got some information, some knowledge that you want to share, we're like a very hungry child from an information point of view. So if you've got something that you'd like to write a guest blog on, then please let me know, and we can help you do that as well, because again, it fits very nicely with the education element of what we're trying to do. And then the final things at the bottom of the page are just connecting with us, so subscribing to us, and that's the way we can kind of keep communicating with you and telling you what's happening. I mentioned about creating an account. I'll do that in a moment. I'll just show you the hamburger menu. It's got all the usual suspects on here, the about and legal pages and that sort of stuff. But you've also got the ability as well to update your own profile, and it tells you what things that you've bought. It gives you an account history as well. To create a new account, if I just log out from here and I get taken back to the home page, and now I've got this create account button. A very simple process, takes you less than a minute to do. Just fill in those details. It gives you the ability to again subscribe with the GDPR guidelines now that we need your permission to communicate with you. So that's really important for us. So we can notify you about things like this webinar and any other events that we've got coming up, new data sets, newsletters, all those sorts of things. It's really important that you've kind of given us your permission for us to do that. Okay. I'm just going to, before I move on to questions, I just wanted to thank you all for your support. It's been incredibly constructive feedback that we've had over the last couple of years, and it's been great to work on a project that's got such a bunch of helpful people, especially as I know you're all kind of really busy in your day jobs. So what I'd like to do now is just throw it over to you, and if anybody's got any questions, feel free to if you move your mouse to the bottom of the screen, it will pop up some options, and you've got the ability to enter a question there. So first question we've got is API. Yes, one of the things that Jose and I have is this big list of things that we'd like to do, and API is very much on the list. So all the things that I've shown you so far from a data set perspective, so all the resources within a data set, they're all accessible by an API. We use a open source technology called CCAN as the dataset repository, and there's a very well documented API that comes with that. What we haven't done yet, and it is on our list of things to do, we've got a meeting in the next week or so to decide what are our priorities for 2019 from a development point of view. But being able to access the site content through an API is on the list. Other things that are on the list are things like improving the visualization, and because we're finding that our audience is increasingly non-experts, so they need to be able to understand the impact of data without necessarily understanding how it's constructed and all the intricacies of it. So being able to present the impacts through, say, for example, a 3D movie, for example, so something that shows a model of a city and different flood levels is a great way to be able to kind of convey the impacts. So that's just another example. Jose and I are talking constantly about increasing the capabilities of our JOnode system as well. So being able to make that available and plug that into the hub. Another question that's come in is, if the information in the hub is marked free, is there a chance to use it to visualize it via your own web platform? Yes, so if it's free data, then the license agreement typically explains what the limitations are. So generally, free data is free. It's most of the free data. In fact, I think all the free data is available on open source licenses. So each data set has its own license agreement with it. So yes, you can download it and integrate it in a platform. A lot of our members are downloading it and downloading data and then porting it into a GIS tool. In terms of visitors and downloads to the website, I haven't got the most up-to-date data. We typically have, I'd need to go back and have a look. There was an email a couple of days ago, and I can't remember the numbers were in there, so I'll get those. But because I don't have the, I do have the latest ones, but not in front of me. So I can get those to you. A question on the map. The lowest level is the country level. Yes, that's another one of the things that's on the list. The map is something that we want to improve on from a user experience point of view. So we want to make it the scrolling and the moving and the navigation around the map smoother. And also what we wanted to do was to increase the kind of the granularity. So being able to drill down to regional level, below country level, and also the ability to add, additional layers on there. At the moment, the map is very much a navigation tool, so it's just another way of being able to find data on the hub. It's not actually something that we, in its current form, is something that we're using for kind of modeling or manipulating data. So it's very much a kind of an index, a graphical index at the moment. So but again, Jose and I have weekly conversations, sometimes daily conversations about cool new things we can do with maps and geospatial platforms. So we will be doing a lot more over the coming months. So we're by no means out of good ideas at the moment. Okay, thank you. Thanks. If there are no more questions, I'll bring things to a close here. So, oh yeah, one question here is, do we do any consultancy? Yes, we do. One of the questions that we get asked quite regularly is, I need data for a particular region, or I need a particular type of hazard data for a particular region, and I can't get it. I can't find it. Can you help me find it? Yes, so we do. We do paid for consulting projects where you give us the parameters that you're looking for, and then we will go away and we'll source that data and with all the kind of necessary license agreements and that with it, so you can do with it what you want. So a question on the website and funding. So Oasis Hub is has been funded by Climate Kick with a view to us being a self-sustaining operation, and so it's very much a long-term project. Climate Kick is about incubating startups in the climate change and the environmental space. So for our particular area is bringing we started out bringing the insurance sector and the academic sector together, and we're kind of growing beyond that now quite rapidly, and so we're sort of winning more and more projects and kind of a self-sufficient operation. Another question that's come in about the tool section. We've been doing some work on the tool section, and we will release the updated version of that. It might slip out before Christmas if we can. If not, it will be very early in the new year. And the idea behind the tool section is it categorizes a range of software tools and that will allow you to kind of manipulate the data in a host of different ways. So we've got tools that help with flooding, for example. So the idea is just to give that extra dimension. And following on from the project to where we can work with you to find data that you're looking for, is something else that we identified quite early on, and we're about 95% of the way there in terms of making it available publicly, is a crowdsourcing platform. So this is kind of an extension of the kind of the one-to-one, where you ask us, can we find data? The crowdsourcing platform will allow you to create a campaign that says, hey, I need flooding data for Vietnam, for example. Can you help me? And you make that, you can either be specific as to who you want to get involved, or you can throw that request out, that campaign out to the entire Oasis Hub community. And it's got a whole bunch of social sharing in there as well. So it can go out through LinkedIn and Twitter and so on. And the idea is that one of the things that we, working with the insurance sector, has been highlighted is there's this, what they call the protection gap. So if you look at the entire landscape of catastrophe data and natural hazard data, there are huge gaps, especially in Southeast Asia and the developing economies, and they are the ones that are going to be more severely hit with the impacts of climate change. So the idea behind this crowdsourcing is that it allows the community to come together and help plug those gaps. And it may be that the community then decides, actually, we're going to sell, we've crowdfunded the data, we've solved our particular project, but we feel that there's an opportunity to earn some revenue off the back of this particular asset, this particular data set that we've created. So then you can make that available commercially on the hub as well, or freely if you want to. It's entirely up to you. The campaign is very much around, or the output of the campaign is very much about within your control and how you'd like the end result to be shared. Okay, hopefully that's answered all your questions. If there are any other questions that come up, my email address is jim.craig, C-R-A-I-G, @oasishub.co. Drop me a note and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. All the questions that have been asked, I'll get a report from the webinar software, and then what I'll do is I'll spin that into a little Q&A document, which I'll include with the recording, the link to the recording. So thank you all very much. There'll be a webinar next week, Wednesday at the same time. So Wednesday, 2 o'clock UK time. And that again will be just a quick run through on how you can upload data to the Oasis Hub. So if there's no more questions, thanks very much for your time and enjoy the rest of the day. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.